Today I am going to show you an action movie titled Homefront. There will be spoilers ahead. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy. The film begins with a flashback to 2 years earlier, when a DEA agent named Phil Broker served as an undercover agent. He became a member of a notorious biker gang, acquired their trust, and began working with them. They were carrying out their illicit activities, unaware that the DEA were about to raid their hideout. A shootout ensues between the gang and the cops. While the cops were apprehending the gang members, the gang leader, Danny, and his son attempt to flee the scene. Phil and the cops pursue them and eventually force them to stop. However, Danny's son refuses to surrender, and as he reaches for his pocket, the cops kill him, believing he is about to shoot them. Danny is distraught and vows to kill Phil and his loved ones. Following the incident, Phil resigns and moves his daughter Maddie to an isolated town. Everything is going well until one day, Phil receives an emergency call from his daughter's school. He rushes to the school and discovers that his daughter punched a boy named Teddy. Cassie, Teddy's mother, is furious that her kid has been attacked and calls the sheriff. The school psychologist, Susan, assures Phil that his daughter is not in any trouble and commends her for standing up to Teddy, who tried to bully her. When Phil tries to leave with his daughter, Cassie confronts them and encourages her husband, Jimmy, to fight Phil. Jimmy is initially hesitant, but relents due to pressure from his wife. He tries to sucker punch Phil, but Phil easily throws him on the ground and puts him in a chokehold. Fortunately, the sheriff steps in and breaks up the brawl. Cassie is furious that her husband got beaten up and tells Jimmy to drop her at her brother's house. Cassie then tells her brother Gator about the incident with Phil and asks him to threaten Phil. Gator assures her that he will punish Phil. The next day, Susan warns Phil to settle his differences with Cassie's family, as the people in their town hold grudges. Phil decides to smooth things over for his daughter's sake and meets Jimmy, who forgives him but asks him to apologize to his wife and son. Afterwards, Gator sends some thugs to harass Phil, but Phil easily beats them up. Gator is in his meth lab when he receives the information about his failed attempt on Phil. He is furious and resolves to take matters into his own hands. A few days later, Phil and his daughter go horseback riding, and Gator seizes the opportunity to break into Phil's home. He notices Phil's car and slashes its tires. Then he explores the house for information on Phil's past and, luckily, comes across an old file. Phil's past position as a DEA agent is mentioned in the file, and information on Danny's case. This gives him the impression that he has won the jackpot, so he takes the file, and Mandy's pet rabbit then exits the house. When Phil and Mandy get home, Phil soon realizes that someone got into their house in his absence. He initially thinks it's Jimmy, but he soon learns that it was Gator. Gator contacts his girlfriend Cheryl and asks her to meet him. When she arrives the next day, they talk about Danny, the drug lord, whose son was killed. Danny still wants revenge for his son's death, and Gator tells her he has found the culprit. He shows her the file, and they intend to give the information to Danny in exchange for his help in distributing their drugs. Cheryl warns him that Danny's gang is dangerous, but Gator ignores her. He convinces her to speak with Danny's attorney and offer them the file as a present. Danny's lawyer visits him in jail. He tells Danny that he has found Phil, so Danny instructs the lawyer to eliminate both Phil and his family. Phil makes peace with Cassie because he wants the feud to end. Later, he meets his neighbor Tito, who tells Phil that the person who came to the house must be Cassie's brother Gator, who has a criminal record. According to rumors, Gator cooks meth and works with the sheriff, who ignores his crimes. Tito, on the other hand, cautions Phil to avoid Gator because he is dangerous. Meanwhile, Maddie celebrates her birthday with her classmates, and Teddy and Cassie join them. Maddie is thrilled to see her father happy with Susan. Later, Cheryl meets Danny's fixer, Cyrus, who is very rude to her and demands Phil's location. However, instead of hearing Cheryl's request, he threatens her, and she has no option but to tell him everything. Afterwards, Gator warns his sister Cassie not to meet with Phil. He advises her that the situation has been resolved and that she must avoid Phil. Cassie requests some drugs, but he refuses to give her any. He then asks her to look after her health, but she becomes enraged and yells at him to leave her alone. Later, Jimmy approaches him in the driveway and asks Gator to keep Cassie away from drugs. That same night, Phil receives a call from his former colleague who informs him about Gator and Cheryl's criminal history. Gator, according to him, had a couple of arrests but nothing notable. But unlike him, his girlfriend Cheryl has a history of drug smuggling offenses. She had also been a member of Danny's gang. The next morning, Phil goes to a local cafe, where he comes across Gator enjoying breakfast with Cheryl. He approaches them and tells Gator that he knows he broke into his house. Gator dismisses the accusations and claims that Phil is paranoid. As Phil prepares to leave, Gator urges him to be more cautious for his daughter's sake. Phil then goes to Gator's house, where he finds his secret meth lab, complete with a freezer full of drugs. He gets an idea to destroy Gator and his drug operation by inserting an explosive into his electric system. This means that the entire building will explode when someone turns on the light switch. However, before Phil can leave, he gets attacked from behind. He loses consciousness, and the attackers tie his hands and start torturing him. He recognizes them as the men who attempted to assault him at the petrol station. They want to take revenge for the beating they received the other day. When one of them tells Phil that his daughter will be their next target, he becomes enraged and starts attacking them, despite being tied up. Due to his superior fighting skills, he manages to defeat them all and frees himself. Phil then rushes back to his house and instructs his daughter to pack her things. Mandy is reluctant to leave, but after some persuasion, he manages to convince her. Meanwhile, Cyrus arrives in Rayville and meets Gator for their planned attack on Phil and his family. He requests that Gator joins his team, but Gator declines. So, they take Cheryl along, ignoring her protests. Phil, on the other hand, meets Tito and asks him to keep an eye out for any possible intruders. Cyrus and his men arrive on boats near Phil's house. At the same time, Gator has a couple of drinks with the sheriff in order to give himself an alibi while Phil is killed. Tito successfully repels the attackers for a while, but one of them shoots him from behind. Phil takes a gun just in case and prepares to leave the house with his daughter. Suddenly, he hears the car horn which Tito pressed, indicating that the intruders have arrived. He then instructs Maddie to hide in the basement and call the cops. He also guides her on what to say on the call. Just as Maddie is about to leave for the basement, Phil is assaulted by Cyrus and his gang. He shoots most of them and fights hard. On the other hand, Maddie sees all of these from the basement and gets terrified. A man discovers her before she can call the police, and she has no other choice but to flee. Phil watches this scene and shoots the man who is chasing his daughter. Maddie continues to run and gets near the riverbank. Cheryl, who is there, waiting for Cyrus, recognizes Maddie and attempts to persuade her into going with her. Maddie refuses to follow Cheryl without her father. However, when Phil arrives there, he is too late as Cheryl has already left with his daughter. He rushes back to his house, where police have finally arrived, and informs them about the attack. When the sheriff asks where the attackers are, he gets surprised to learn that Phil has eliminated them all. Suddenly, the police radio picks up a call from Maddie, who wishes to speak with her father. She informs him that Cheryl is driving her to a location, and he realizes that the location is Gator's house. He also advises her to keep the phone turned on because he will come to her rescue. To save his daughter in time, he seizes a police car and begins speeding towards Gator's house. He keeps calling Maddie, but she doesn't answer, which makes him worried. Cheryl later arrives at Gator's house and informs him that she is holding Phil's daughter hostage. Surprisingly, instead of being thrilled, he becomes enraged for bringing an eyewitness to his place, and he must now kill Maddie. Cheryl is opposed to ending a child. Gator, on the other hand, ignores her pleas. Just then, his sister Cassie arrives to inquire about whether Gator had anything to do with Maddie's disappearance. He assures her that she is not with him and urges her to leave, but Cassie hears Maddie's screams from the building. She is alarmed and turns on the garage's lights, causing a huge explosion that destroys Gator's house and meth lab. As Cassie tries to save Maddie from Gator, she accidentally gets shot. Knowing that Phil must be coming for his daughter, he abandons Cassie and drives away. Soon the paramedics arrive and carry Cassie to the hospital. The sheriff asks the dispatch to open the bridge to prevent Gator from escaping, but Gator is able to make it past the bridge with Phil hot on his trail. Phil eventually collides with Gator's car, flipping it. Phil is about to kill him when his daughter pleads with him to spare his life. In the final scene, Phil visits Danny in jail to warn him that he will be waiting for him when Danny is released. Let me know what you think about this movie in the comments below, and if you like my video, please hit the like button and subscribe for more. Thanks for watching.